The Stateside Soccer Show is now covering Ted Lasso.
If that's a joke, I love it. If not, I cannot wait to unpack that with you.
That's no joke. The Stateside Soccer Show now presents Believe Cast. We aren't talking about faith or ghosts.
Do you believe in ghosts, Ted?
I do. But more importantly, I think they need to believe in themselves.
We are talking Ted Lasso episode recaps. So sit back, get ready for us to discuss all the tea.
You know, I always figured that tea was just going to taste like hot brown water. And you know what? I was right. Yeah, it's horrible.
Hello and welcome back to Believe Cast, presented by the Stateside Soccer Show. We are doing Ted Lasso recaps each week. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me today is somebody that was going to cancel last minute, but I have his cell phone number, so I just called him up, and he was able to come in here right away. Logan Stump.
It's you again. Hi. Jordan, I haven't seen you in a long time. It's been a while. How's it
You know
been?
what I'm thinking? I'm thinking if I'm really good friends with you, I probably could have been the one that made you not show up as well. That's what I'm thinking.
You're insane.
But here we are. We are talking about For the Children, written by Jamie Lee, directed by Tom Marshall, and it aired August 21st, 2020 on Apple TV Plus. Synopsis: Rebecca hosts the team's annual charity benefit where Ted stages a reconciliation between Roy and Jamie. Real quick, last episode we left off, that was the first cliffhanger because they released those first 3 episodes back to back to back. Do you think that was a good spot for them to do this and then have this one be the first one that had a normal wait? This is mainly a question for people as they're trying to originally watch this along with it. Like, put yourself in the shoes of Apple deciding how many of these get released to start. But what are your thoughts, Logan? Was that a good end spot with this being another good, like, pickup spot?
You know, I think it's excellent because it ends with Trent Krim, who we thought was going to write the most scathing article on Ted, ends up actually being a really good article that I think fans would get behind and rally around Ted. And it's the exact opposite that Rebecca wanted. You know, so I think, you know, we've started to kind of see Rebecca open up, right, to Keeley a little bit. She's had that moment with Keeley now. And now she's going to be put into a place where this is a big Rebecca episode that we're about to get, that we're going to talk about. So, no, I think it's a great spot to kind of leave off. When Apple decided, I was like, this is perfect. Because I think after the second one, it would have been a little weird. After this next one, it would have been a little weird that we're going to talk about. So I think 3 was perfect. I think this was an excellent choice by Apple, and I totally agree with the decision.
I agree, too, because in that first, if you watched all 3 in one night, which I did for that first rewatch with my wife. So it was my wife's first time. We watched 3 in one night. And to think that you're introduced to Trent Krim in the first episode, and then by the end of you watching, which is like an hour, 20 minutes later, right, that you're like, oh, Trent Krim's totally come around on this guy. Like, and having Rebecca kind of thwarted again, right, was kind of, I think, a really good spot to be like, he's making a difference here. We see him walking along with the community, all that kind of stuff. And then kind of leaving that sit for a bit of Ted is having an impact. And then if you're watching when it originally aired, waiting a week, right, and then coming to this episode, I think was a good choice. But let's talk about this episode now. For the Children, like I said, Rebecca is hosting the team's annual charity benefit. What was your initial thoughts of this episode?
Yeah, I enjoyed this change of pace, and it's so realistic too. Like that's the other thing that the show does so well. Like surrounding a soccer club, like this is the kind of stuff that you like, not the dramatics and the antics and stuff, but a lot of like you go out for this big gala, and they have all these red carpet events, and the players are there, and they're trying to raise money for the club and the community and charity. And this is a huge thing for owners. Like this would be something totally that is 100% believable. And I think my initial thoughts were like, wow, I did not see all of the stuff that happened coming. So I think it was it was definitely an episode with a lot of twists and turns, and some really good moments between characters you didn't really suspect to have good moments yet. So
Yeah, I think this is another really solid episode. And we're starting to see those blocks, right? We talked about it last episode of Rebecca and Keely starting to bond. We get a little bit more of that here, which I will have a question about in this episode. But so we get a little bit of that. We get Ted making a little bit more progress on Rebecca as well with what he's able to do in this episode. So let's dive in, I guess, here with the plot. So it opens up with them having a bad halftime result, right? Like they're losing, they're not playing well. Roy is pissed. Jamie is being a prick to Sam Obasanya again. And Roy cuts in, and we get Ted asking Beard, Ted asking them, what is my number one rule of no Fight Club? What is my number one rule of Fight Club? And Beard saying no Fight Club, and the way he shouts that is perfect. I really like this line a lot here.
yeah, no, this is good. I love Beard so much, and he doesn't say much, but when he does, it's random like shouts out into the universe, and he's usually in agreement with whoever it is that he's talking about. It's fantastic.
And we have Roy saying, "Call me old one more time" to Jamie, and Jamie calls him granddad, and they start fighting, and we cut to credits. I don't get to see the fallout of that. But the next thing that we see here is that they're on the practice field, right? And they're getting ready for this. Rebecca calls down and tells Beard that you can't mark both chicken and steak for the dinner tonight. You have to pick one. She also wants to know who's Ted's +1. Ted says Beard, and she says no, Beard already has a +1. So he picks Nate, and Rebecca's kind of like, who's Nate again? And it's this guy. Like, she has no clue still who one of her employees is. It's so sad. And Ted also will walk up there at some point and say, can we have Roy and Jamie sit at my table? Because he wants to mend some fences. And she's kind of busy picking out her dress. So she's like, yeah, whatever, that's fine. And he wants to have more conversation. He tries to tell the story about his prom, and she cuts him off. And he still fits the story in here, which is what Ted does, right? He mentions it. I think in the first episode he does something like that, where Rebecca tries to put a stop to it, and he like brings it up a different way, right? But in this one, he says, Ted wore pajamas to his prom and spent the night in jail. Logan, what do we think happened here? What happened at Ted's prom that he wore pajamas but also had to spend a night in jail?
I mean, I feel like Ted definitely enjoys a brew or two. Like I definitely feel like he got a little tipsy and had too much fun, because I feel like he'd just be a fun loving guy. So you could get him to do whatever you wanted to get him to do. And plus, I think he grows up in Kansas. So yeah, I think that there's a lot to kind of speculate that Ted's a free spirited kind of fun. I don't think he did anything malicious, but I think he probably had a little too many drinks and went swimming in a fountain or something that you weren't supposed to do. But I can't imagine that it was anything harmful. I could see like him like tipping over cows or something. I don't know. It just seems like something Ted would do.
Yeah, it's just I think at this point sometimes it's like the writers are like, what weird story can we like kind of have to say, and we don't have to worry about it at all, right? We don't have to worry about explaining this at all. But here's a funny anecdote that you get a little tease about. Robbie Williams, the musical guest, has canceled, and Higgins is on the case to find a replacement. I'm trying to find out Robbie Williams. Okay, I've Googled him. All right, let's figure out what he sings. He is from Stoke-on-Trent in England. Formerly of the band called Take That, which was a pop group in 1990. We know Rebecca is down with the pop. She chose Spice Girls, right, as her favorite concert.
Oh, that was the story, the concert, because Ted was trying to tell the story, and Rebecca kept
Yeah,
trying
that
to
was in
like
episode 1 or
reject it a
2,
little
right?
bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So Robbie Williams has actually sang at the opening ceremony of the FIFA World Cup in 2018. So he's got a history with football. So that's interesting. But yeah, I'm not too familiar with him. So I'm pretty sure he's probably more in a British sphere, right? But he has a solo career as well as a career with a former pop band. So that's Robbie Williams. But he cancels. And Higgins has to find the replacement. He says he's a world-class problem solver. He almost drops his phone here. Higgins just cracks me up every time. I can't help it.
He always looks so startled. His eyes are always like, "Oh no! Like, what have I done? I've done bad things."
I just love Ted too being like, yeah, catch it. Oh, he's got it. That was really great. But Higgins is played by Jeremy Swift. He is so good and so perfect in the role. Makes me laugh all the time. But yeah, so we get that little scene. I wonder if that was improvised, the phone dropping, because sometimes that's hard to fake.
Especially,
And
like,
they just kept it in.
Yeah, especially because it's like it did
make it
kind
not
of
look
look like
fake.
yeah,
Yeah.
it did kind of look like what you would look like when you were dropping your phone, because it's that moment of oh crap, and then you catch it. So no, it's good. If not, it's great acting.
Oh yeah. We get Jamie now picking out a suit with Keely, and he decides to go with no undershirt. Here he's gonna rock just his chest. That'll come back to haunt him a little bit. But your thoughts on, is this fashion, Logan, rocking just the blazer with no undershirt?
Maybe for the kids these days, I think. I don't know. And Jordan, I got a question for you, and this is totally random, but it was fashioned, and it's Jamie. Do you know Jamie's icon hat, like the black hat with? I know you've seen it, like the black hat with the big white letters. Did he start that trend? Because every single like athlete now, and even
I
young
don't think
person
so.
wears that icon hat. I wanted to know. I mean, you probably wouldn't know, but I just wonder, because like ever since then, like random people will have that icon hat, and I'm like, did Jamie Tartt start that? Because if so, you're wearing that hat for him, and you're kind of like, he's kind of a tool. So it's like, I don't know. But no, just a random thought. But no, this is not fashion by any, like, Jordan, this would be so uncomfortable. Like, those suits are not comfortable. I hate like when clothes like that are on my body. I just can't get comfortable. Nope. Not fashion.
Yeah, I don't think it's
Stupid.
fashionable either. I mean, like, I wish I could pull it off, right? Like, I don't have the body for it, but
That's debatable. I've seen yours. So.
yeah, all right. Yeah, but yeah, you know, you wish you could pull something like that off, but it's also just shows Jamie's personality even more, right? Like, I don't even need a shirt. I can just rock my body with the blazer, and it'll be trend setting because I'm Jamie Tartt, and that's his thought process. Ted is calling his wife as he's walking out of his apartment. He's got his suit on, and he's leaving a voicemail, and he, a heartbreaking part here where he almost trips up and says, "I love you," and cuts himself off. He's trying to give her space. And he helps, he runs into Nate, and he's like, it's just a great line here of, are you the type of guy that likes when a friend points out that he's got food in his teeth? And he's like, yeah, do I have something? He's like, because that suit doesn't fit you at all, right? So they're going to go, it's his dad's suit. They're going to go to pick out a suit that fits. And Ted also, while he's walking by, before he runs into Nate, gives money to the street musician. That'll come back around. But he was also in episode 2. And this is what I'm really digging here, Logan, is this show is very good at the continuity. It's very good at bringing people back. We talked about it last week when he stops at the chauffeur, the driver's, restaurant. That is straight from the pilot. And then we have this episode bringing back the street musician from episode 2 that he's admiring. He's watching in episode 2, he's watching the street musician, and then I think that's when he goes and plays soccer with the girl, or with watching the girl take on the guys in soccer. But he originally stops and he's like watching the street musician. It's the same guy. So just really cool how they've been able to build that stuff in here. I'm not sure how, like, as somebody that has wrote stuff before, right? It works both ways at times. Sometimes you'll think of something and be like, all right, let's plant that seed now. And then there's sometimes where you wrote something and you're like, oh, I can bring that back next time. And I wonder what the case was for something like the restaurant guy and this. I feel like the street musician one, they established he was there in episode 2, and then when they're writing episode 5, they're probably like, or 4, this one, they're probably like, oh man, we need another musician. Let's bring that guy back. But I think it was maybe the opposite way for the driver, when they have a chauffeur plug a restaurant and then think, all right, we got to bring that back somehow. So sometimes I wonder how that stuff plays out, as somebody that has written stuff before, but it can work both ways. But I just like the behind the scenes stuff.
I think it's huge too. Like, continuity is big. Like, you and I are big fans of The Office. I think The Office has always done well with that. There were some gaps, obviously. Friends is awful with it. Like, Friends is the worst. I think their continuity. And
Ross has like 3 birthdays.
Yeah, right. 3 birthdays and different wives. Like, they just couldn't keep. And I get that. Like, you got cast that change, but like things change so much. I think at one point, wasn't one of them like a single child, and then all of a sudden they've got siblings. I forget what show that was, but I can't remember if that's Friends or if that's somewhere else. I think it might have been Phoebe. Like, she's never mentioned that she had a twin sister, and all of a sudden she has a twin sister.
Well, the twin sister was in season 1. That was pretty early.
Okay.
So I think I know
Chandler.
exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about, though. That because they established Chandler stuff pretty early too. But I think it's like there's definitely a show. It may not be Friends that clearly stated somebody was like
Rachel, maybe that she was an only child,
sister.
And then all of a sudden
when did they say that?
Yeah, I don't remember. It's something like that. It's something in Friends that it's like it's the dynamic of the family, I think. That's strange, but I think, Jordan, another thing, I think it keeps these current shows accountable that all these people have social media now. So like, there are people literally that have accounts that this is their job, is like they go and find this kind of stuff. Like, this stuff's magic or this stuff sucks. And they literally have accounts that try to find this stuff.
I'll tell you what's helped it more than that. Right? What has helped it more than that, and what has made shows more accountable for stuff like this, is not social media, but the fact that every episode is available forever. Forever. Like, when you watched Friends when it was first airing, to watch it again, it'd have to be on repeat or syndication, or you'd have to have recorded it on your video cassette tape. You'd have to have a whole bunch of these video cassette tapes. Because DVDs did not start coming out for all of these seasons, I think, until Friends was near its end of the run. So Friends went from 94 to 04. I think probably 01 is when the first DVD comes out. Now, there was a VHS set that had like 5 episodes each on like 2 cassettes that we owned, but that was it. Those were the only 10 episodes me and my sister watched all of the time, because they're the only ones we had on VHS, compared to once you buy the DVD, and then now with streaming, where everything is at the fingertip of, like, there's been times, Logan, when we're talking, because we recap other stuff too. For people that don't know, I have a Marvel podcast, I have a Star Wars podcast, right? And Logan's been on those shows. We've talked about that. There's been times where I've quickly gone like Disney Plus, pull up a still frame of the thing while we're recording, and you couldn't do that, back then. you had to pause it and it'd be in this awful 4:3 aspect ratio and it'd be like blurry. Sometimes you pause the VHS and it'd be like shifting as you paused it and you're like, I can't really see what that says. But now you can pause and read a newspaper that's on the screen. People zoom in and read that stuff. Like you said, because it's their job, or some social media accounts are just created by fans that look for every little nugget, right? Like I mentioned last episode, I was looking for every book that Ted handed out. You could not do that in the 90s, right? But now that it's all available, people are going to judge you on that stuff. And it's easier to keep track of the continuity. If you're the script supervisor for Friends and they mentioned Ross had a October birthday, and then 3 years later they bring up an episode for his birthday and it's in like February, the script supervisor is not going back 3 years, and they're not going to go through all those cassette tapes to look for it. They're going to look for obvious inconsistencies, right? But yeah, for this type of show, it is so much easier now to be like, oh, what did we say was in, like, if they're writing season 3, they can be like, what did we say in season 1? Pull that up. There it is. And they can just go right to it. And it's so much easier. And they know fans are going to look at it, that I think it's definitely changed the way TV has been.
I figured it out. It was Rachel. Rachel had one sister, then she had two sisters, then she had one sister, and it kept going back and forth. But there's a lot. I mean, there's a ton. There's 30 something on this one I just pulled up by itself.
Yeah, well, I'm looking up Ross's birthday. Hold on, because this is a thing.
Yeah.
This is a thing. October 18th is when they say it is. In the one with Joey. No, this is the one where Emma cries. It's mentioned that Ross's birthday is October 18th. And the one in 1997, the one with Joey's new girlfriend, when Rachel's making a list of birthdays, he says his birthday is in December. So, two conflicting ones there that nowadays doesn't happen as much because they're able to just pull those things up and they take better notes because they know people are watching like a hawk on this stuff. That's a long rant to just say how well we really like the continuity in this show.
It's a great one, though.
Red carpet. So they get to the red carpet. I love here. This is a great moment. Sam Obasanya asking all of the cameramen their names and stuff. He's like, you're Jeff. Like just the type of person he is, right? Jamie goes up there rocking no shirt and he's just like, yeah, I look good, right? And Sam's like trying to get to know these people. The differences in these characters is just so much fun at times. Also on the red carpet, we get Rebecca very nervous. She kind of shoos, Keely and Jamie away, who are like making out on the carpet at this point because she just wants to get inside. That's all she wants, just to get inside. Also at the red carpet, we're going to get Roy just walking by saying, no, F you, F you. It's just perfect Roy scene here.
Yeah, no photos of me, please. That's also when you get Keely, like Rebecca
Helping
is very
Rebecca,
hesitant, and then Keely's like, I've done this thousands of times. That's what I do for a living. So let me show you how to do it. And then you get this cool moment where she goes behind paparazzi and lets Rebecca have her moment.
She's effing fit.
Right. Because it's a huge deal for Rebecca. She's doing this without Rupert for the first time. And this is a massive gala. Like, this is where they get a ton of money. This is where she can kind of fix anything that maybe people have this perception of. So she sees this as a big opportunity. I think it's the biggest night of her life, is what she says usually, is this gala that they have to put on.
And I think, she mentions to Ted that this isn't unusual for her, right? That she is usually the one that's in charge of setting all this up because Rupert just doesn't care, right? He's too busy doing other stuff. But it's the new pressure of it, the new pressure of being judged on doing this solo for her first time, right? Like, that's where I feel like the pressure is on for Rebecca here. We get Nate starting to strut here, and he does the same move from the last episode. And this was perfect. I did not catch this the first time I watched it, but I caught it the second two times, the next two times I watched it. And it's a nice bit.
It's how I'm going to start walking. Literally, like when I kind of.
And we also have when Nate says it's nice to see you again, and she says nice to meet you, and he says
Yep.
nice to meet you too. He just completely folds at that point, like, oh yeah, no, I don't know you.
He does it a ton though. He folds all the time because people just run through him.
We see Beard talking to his date Jane, and they've met at chess club, and they're playing a game without a board here, which is just so nerdy, so great that this is what they're getting off on it too. You know, they're like talking all like heavy breathing at like knight to K5, you know, knight to King 5 and all this stuff. Just a lot of fun with Beard here, who doesn't get a lot in this episode. That's pretty much the extent of his episode. All right, inside, Roy and Jamie find out that they're at the same table, and Ted says he parent trapped them, and that always makes me laugh too. That line of parent trapped. Do you ever wonder? You know, Parent Trap was an original film back in like the 60s. So I'm wondering, is Ted referring to the original, or is he referring to the Lindsay Lohan one? And because sometimes I wonder, like, how old he would have been when that came out. Because sometimes shows do this, where like the character will reference something that is like a kid's movie or a family movie, that came out way after the person was like a kid. So I wonder. I'm thinking he's saying about the Lindsay Lohan Parent Trap. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, I think so, because I think he would have to be like 60 something, I think, or 50 something.
No, he is 50 something, but yeah, my parents, I think Sudeikis is, what is he, 40 something?
Yeah, but how old is Ted?
I would think around the same age. He's 47 is what Sudeikis is. Born in 75. I don't know. My parents are not too much are not too much older than him, and they watched that growing up, the original. So I don't know. Not important. Just something to think about, I guess. You know, because I'm thinking like, why would he have watched the Lindsay Lohan one? Because at that point he's way past the age, right? He's like,
but he did listen. He did listen to Spice Girls because he's the one that brings. You know, yeah. I'm not gonna say too much after that, but I know he listens to Spice Girls because there's a certain particular, you know what, or not NSYNC. Sorry, wrong one.
Oh yeah,
got my. But Spice Girls too, because I think she was talking about Rebecca. Yeah.
We get Nate. You know, Keeley mentions Nate's suit, and he says it's the second suit I ever owned after coming out as a naked baby or something. He ruins the punchline. The punchline is the birthday suit, which Ted's like, well, you forgot to mention that part. But
that's when Roy looks at him like, dude, what? Like, yeah. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's a weird thing. Naked baby joke. Didn't land at all with the table. Keeley found it funny after his corrective, but everybody's kind of like, what are you saying? Rebecca is about to make her speech. She's practicing. Ted gives her some advice. Start with a joke. She takes this advice, actually. So is this Rebecca maybe coming around a little bit more on Ted as she actually takes his advice and makes a joke? You know, it's something. And then Rupert is going to interrupt the speech. We find out from Rebecca that he had said he wasn't coming, right? He marked no on the RSVP, and his night, you know, happened to free up, and he decided to come in. And we get, is this the first time we've actually seen him in person, right, Rupert?
Yes. Yeah, this is the first time. He just kind of storms in, and like I honestly, like I expected, like the first time I expected to see Rupert would be him trying to steal Rebecca's thunder, because he still cares about the club and he still mentions the club, and he, you know, he's definitely still involved. But yeah, no, this is the first time we see him. He's just got that arrogance about him that he made my skin crawl when I first saw him. So not a Rupert fan.
So we have him interrupting the speech. This is for Jamie spills food on his body. And we get Roy saying another reason that shirts exist. Just a great line there. And Nate is going to thank Roy at this point as well when Jamie gets up about stopping the bullying last week. So he's appreciative of that. Ted is going to get introduced to Rupert. This is a lot of passive aggressive stuff here, right? I really like this. When Ted says something about like, I forget what the exact wording is, but it's something about like liking something, and then Rupert flips that of, what I haven't liked is our last 2 losses, right? Like our last 2 before, and he flips it immediately here. We get, this part where he says, I actually believe you, right? Like Rupert says, I actually believe you. We'll turn this around. And he looks at Rebecca, and Rebecca hesitates, and Ted's like, this night's going to take a really bad turn if you don't like agree with him, right? And she's like, of course I believe Ted. But, I think at this point, one, she still doesn't, but also like this is still her master plan, but it's also she's just so lost in her hatred of Rupert and kind of focusing. I don't even think she's really present that much in this conversation when it's going on.
Yeah, I'd say over the last couple of episodes, I mean, it's just been Rebecca's not there. You can just tell she's got this. She wants revenge. She is seeking revenge. She wants to destroy the one thing that her husband loved, and it's the club. And whoever she had to take down with it, she doesn't care. So it's the same thing when she goes after Higgins. Higgins seems like a nice guy, but he also, you notice he just doesn't have that. He would never have stepped in front of Rupert and said, no, you need to stop with these girls, or I'm going to go tell your wife. Like, that's just not Higgins. So, yeah, it is interesting when he puts this back on Rebecca, and Rebecca's like, of course I believe in Ted. But I think Ted, is like, why did you hesitate? The hell? So
yeah. He says it nicely, though, right? Like, this is going to take a weird turn if you don't agree. We get them saying a few times here "for the children," which is the name of the episode, but Logan, I couldn't help it. I know this came out beforehand, but I flashed right to WandaVision when they're doing they have a whole thing where they're doing this event for the children, and they kept saying like "for the children." It was very cult-like. And I was like, oh, okay. I know Ted Lasso came out first, but I got the same WandaVision vibes here.
Yep, totally agree.
Rupert asked Ted how Rebecca is doing, and he mentions that Robbie Williams is an old pal of his, and he can text him he'll be over lickety split, right? And Ted says he'll go ask Rebecca about it, but he also wants to get a drink. I like this part where he says he wants a double and a single and one, so a triple. Just great little moments from Ted Lasso. Then we get to the auction, Logan, where we have Jamie Tartt going up first. The old woman is going to bid on him first, and then Keely does, and then a mysterious woman does as well. We don't know who she is yet, right? And he goes for $25,000 to Keely. That's a lot of money for your boyfriend. Rupert makes a joke about that. Like, why spend time with him for free when you can buy him for $25,000? And just to knock out the auction altogether, we only see Jamie and then we see Roy, where Keely is going to bid on Roy as well because she's in the middle of a spat with Jamie, and Jamie says he doesn't get jealous, so she starts doing that. Then the old lady bids as well. I think she wins, so old lady wins, and Roy tells Keely not to ever use him in the middle of their argument again.
I like this moment though, like just because the whole time the old lady's like looking at Jamie, like giving him the sign, and she's like, "Oh no, that's when Roy and Keely are making fun of Jamie, and they're like, if she goes over $3,000, you have to sleep with her."
Yeah,
like, and he goes, "No," and Keely's like, "Oh yeah, that's kind of what the deal is," and they both get it to believe it.
Yeah. Jamie tells both of them to pretty much F off. Rebecca's outside. She's upset. Ted checks in on her. She mentions that she doesn't want to be alone, like as a person, and that all this stuff with Rupert and all that's been getting under her. Ted goes back in. But I wanted to make this clear. This is happening at the time that Jamie is being bid on. Okay, because Rebecca is going to say, has Rupert started the auction? All right. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because Rebecca is going to tell Keeley when they're alone that the other woman who bid on Jamie was his other +1. My question is, how did she know this? She was outside. She didn't see who bid on Jamie. So she wasn't there. Ted was checking on her during that. So if Jamie was the first one auctioned. So if she had known that Rupert had started the auction, she didn't know Rupert had started the auction. She asked Ted if he had started the auction. He had, so she never actually saw the bid. So how did she know? I think this is just one of those things this is maybe a little bit of the continuity issue, because she somehow knew that this person also bid on Jamie.
Yeah, because Jamie was before Roy, right?
Yeah, Roy's last. Jamie's
right.
first, and this scene happens in between those.
But does she say, has he started the auction yet? Or does she say auction for Jamie or anybody?
Well, Jamie was the first auction, right?
Yeah.
And she says, she just means, has Rupert started the auction? Because there's whole conflict of, she was going to do the auction, but she lets Rupert do it. So she's like, you can do it. She leaves. She goes outside. That's when then Roy is talking. I mean, not Roy. Sorry. Ted is talking to Rupert. He gets his drink, and then he goes checks with her about getting Robbie. He doesn't mention it to her, though, because he sees her crying.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So she missed that whole auction. At least Jamie. She at least missed Jamie, which was the first person. So just a little bit of a continuity error there. I tripped them up. I found it, Jamie and Roy are going to talk about their issues. We learned that Jamie actually had a poster of Roy on his wall growing up. And I really like this part here, because when Roy was talking to Ted earlier, of course, right? Ted asked Roy, like, what were you like at that age, right? And Roy says the same.
Madonna, little bitch.
Yeah, he says the same thing that he says about Jamie. And, Jamie and Roy kind of have a moment here of, there was a guy on, Chelsea when he was breaking in that gave him some problems, and he hopes that guy's dead, right? Like, because Jamie's like, did you guys ever mend it? He's like, no, I hate that guy. Like, I hope he's dead. But the fences are starting to mend here, but this will kind of gets a little bit muddled when the auction for Roy happens, and kind of puts them in the middle of their little spat there that he kind of feels like there's cracks back in it again.
I think my favorite line is the one where it's like, when Jamie goes, did you guys become friends? And Roy goes, F no. Yeah. And he goes, I hope he's dead. And then Jamie goes, well, then here's to you dying.
Yeah.
It's a great moment. But there's a lot of good ones in between him, like the prima donna little bitch. And then they talk about like Buzz and Woody and getting under each other's plastic and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
Nate says, well, isn't Woody made out of like stuffing?
Off. Yeah.
Woody's face is plastic, though. So
that's true.
Take that, Nate.
Continuity.
Ted and Rupert are talking again, and this is where Rupert asks, hey, did you ask Rebecca about me inviting Robbie back? And he says, she said, I think he says she said no, right? Like, don't worry about it. But he says, it occurred to me that if you're really good friends with Robbie, you could have also told him not to come. And we're led to believe this is what had happened. And Rupert says, now that would make me a real piece of shit, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would. yeah, it would. Rebecca tells Keeley that the other woman bid on Jamie as the other +1. That's where this happens. And then Ted has to go find another musician because Higgins still hasn't done it. I like when Higgins gets asked by Rebecca, he says he's made a list of all the people that couldn't do it, and he's working process of elimination.
think this is beautiful. This is awesome.
Ted goes and gets the street musician Cam, and it starts off a little rough, right? Like the microphone makes the feedback noise, and then everybody's dancing because he's killing it. Rebecca and Ted talk, and Ted says to Rebecca, you may think you're the only one to see who Rupert really is, but you are not. And Keely breaks up with Jamie right here. And we get Keely and Rebecca riding off in the rickshaw, which she said she had never rode before, Rebecca. And Ted and Beard are going to walk out. Jane left him because she wanted to put the game aside. He was too focused on the invisible chess game in their head. And it's kind of ambiguous if Jane will be back. But that wraps up this mammoth of an episode, which feels like a lot happens in it for the short 30 minutes that it is.
No, one thing though, as they're walking out, Beard and Ted turns to Beard and goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, Michelle and Henry are coming over next week." So there you go, leading into episode 5. A little bit of
because the next episode we're going to be talking about is called Tan Lines. And that's episode 5 of season 1. That'll be the halfway point of season 1. Logan, we're already almost to the halfway point.
That's insane.
Of season 1 of these recaps.
Nuts.
It's crazy. All right, let's get over to our man of the match. Surprise, surprise. He's here. He's there. He's everywhere. It's Roy Kent again for me. He's killing it every week for me, but I just love him trying to fix the bridge here with Jamie. But I also have to say, I really liked his FU to the cameraman, and I really liked him just being straight up with Keely of, don't do that. That's embarrassing. Don't ever bring me into your little lover spat.
I'm going to go Jamie on this one, and I'm going to go Jamie because I think you start to see a little glimpse into why Jamie does kind of hold on to things a little long and he gets an attitude. It's because, he's had heroes like Roy, who he had a poster of on his wall as a young boy. He was looking for somebody to kind of aspire to. And when he finally gets to be with Roy, meet Roy is nothing that he seemed to be. So it does show that Jamie does have a soft side. Jamie wanted a nurturing leader, somebody that was like this great footballer that he just idolized for so long to be this person that he'd put up on a pedestal, and he disappoints in every aspect of it. So I think you really do start to see a little bit of Jamie kind of peeled back here that you don't normally get to see with him.
I'll allow it.
VAR says that it was a good shout. So
we need that in season 3. We need VAR.
We really do.
For people
the whole episode.
That's video assistant referee. They now have video replay. All right. Employee of the week. This is the staff member. I have to give it to my man Higgins. I'm just kidding. No, I'm going with Ted Lasso this week, saving the day with the musical act and helping Rebecca, and also solving Jamie and Roy are trying to get that issue taken, buying or helping Nate buy his suit. He does so much right in this episode. I have to give it to Ted.
I'm going Rebecca, overcoming the challenges of having to be, she's so professional. Everything that she does in front of that crowd, she could have done so many things to kind of just ruin the night, and she never does. She's very professional. She says, "Rupert, I'm glad to have you. Can you run the auction? You're much better at than I." And she admits it in front of the crowd. She has her moment where she goes outside, cools off a little bit, but I think she's finally, like, this feels like Rebecca's, okay, I can start to turn the page. Rupert is not always going to control my life. I might still be very angry, but I think she's starting to kind of slowly realize that, hey, I can get through this. I've got a nice supporting cast in and around me. So,
alrighty, so that is our man of the match and employee of the week picks as we continue on this rewatch. Like we said, next week is Tan Lines, episode 5, and Logan alluded to it. No spoilers, but because it is mentioned at the end of this episode, but Ted's wife and his kid are coming over to visit. So that is which one we will be talking about next. If you want to send us any feedback on our Ted Lasso rewatch. Ted Lasso rewatch at gmail.com. You can give us your thoughts of the episode. Give us your man of the match. Give us your employee of the week. Or you can tweet us at believe_cast. Or if you want to hit up Stateside Show, which is our Stateside Soccer Show, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Stateside Show. Thank you all for listening or watching along with us again this week. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time.